Hello, everyone. So, I have a quick question for you guys before we start with this talk. So, just tell me when you talk about or think about accessibility or usability, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Compliance, right? Standards, guidelines, or checklist, right? But have you ever thought that what lies beyond the world of compliance? No worries. If you haven't, I'm here to walk you through the topic beyond compliance, shifting perspective to exceptional user experience. I am Kalpana Kukreja, a test consultant at Rapid Circle, the world of exceptional user experience. We are here to compare the meeting compliance and how to offer the exceptional user experience to our users. So when we talk about the compliance, do you know that compliance has become nothing but a trap for most of us, right? Because it comes with the legal requirements. For many countries, accessibility is the legal requirement when you have to work onto the public websites. Then there are certain sets of standards and guidelines. So the entire world revolves around those guidelines. And then the scope of compliance. It offers us very limited scope while we try to meet the compliance. Some common standards and regulations which top our mind after thinking about accessibility are WCAG, which is the globally recognized guidelines. Then AD, which is the Americans with Disability Act, and Section 508 in United States, which asks you to ensure that the users with disability have equal access to digital world. AODA for Canada and Ontarians, and many different digital accessibility laws across the world. Right, but we often tend to forget that compliance is essential, but it is not sufficient. There is a whole world of different innovations and opportunities which lies if we move just beyond the compliance, if we move beyond the ticking boxes of accessibility and checklist. Right, so let's see what is the difference between the compliance and exceptional user experience, how they differ. Right, so when we have to weigh them on a scale, so talking about the compliance, it comes with a limited focus, where our entire focus is in checking the boxes. Then it is mostly legally driven because there are different types of laws in every country for accessibility. And it comes with a static approach. So when we have the guideline ready, we only talk about how do we proceed to meet those guidelines, or how do we proceed to meet those standards. So we often follow with that same static approach. But when we talk about exceptional experience, it gives you a room for efficiency, that the users are able to efficiently navigate through your application. It gives an opportunity for intuitiveness. Intuitiveness is the ease of use, ease to use something, right? People are able to use your product, use your application very easily. Then there is a continuous improvement. So continuous improvement is when you put your product out in the market and you receive some sort of user feedback, you go back, you implement that feedback and again re-release another version of it, right? And this is the most important, which is user centricity. So when you're focused towards offering an exceptional experience to your users, you have to consider your users to the center of your product, to the center of your application. Now, how to follow that user-centric approach, how to follow that human-centered approach? So in the human-centered approach, human is always at the center of everything. Human is at the center of your design, at the center of your development, at the center of your testing, and even it's the end user who is going to use your product and give profits to you, right? So the factors that need to be considered while following the human-centered approach are: the first is user-centered testing. Yes, whenever you are testing a software, you have to make sure that you're testing it from the user's perspective and not what the requirement is or what the technical intention is. Then also we need to make sure that if this is meeting your actual user needs, it's not something which just you have to offer. If it is something that the user actually needs, right? It shouldn't be the case that, okay, user wants to travel from Mumbai to Delhi, but you're asking them to go to Mumbai to Delhi via Calcutta. It won't make sense, right? Then this is the very important, which is a continuous improvement. Once you receive a feedback from user in terms of design, in terms of feature build, in terms of any sort of feature that we have rolled out, implement that feedback and then re-release the another version by incorporating that feedback. Then it's universal design principles. So your users are scattered across the globe, right? There are different variety of users. So use the design principles which are universally accepted or which are universally understood everywhere across the country, across the geographical region, where the users are physically or socially divided in different groups, right? Then this is a very critical one, that please don't make your user think. What this means is make sure that your application is easy to navigate, it is easy to use, and user is able to perform that flow very easily without thinking that, oh, now I need to check out. Where should I go for checking out? Do not use like many a different sort of animations, more complex designs, which like magical elements which can confuse user. It has to be pretty straightforward that, okay, the user gets to know, they are able to figure it out all by themselves, that how they are supposed to use this particular application. Then is build solutions beyond compliance. Yes, I understand you are meeting the compliance, everything is done, but make sure you are building solutions by thinking beyond compliance. That means it can be simple to use, easy to understand. It can be, uh, yes, it is meeting the needs actually, but without just meeting the checklist. It is something which is more creative and it is meeting the user needs. Then iterative design. So iterative design is something where you have the room for continuous updating the design, right? Updating the design continuously in order to make sure that it is serving the user needs. Now, when we are talking about designs, how do you make sure that your design is inclusive and why it is important? So always remember that people ignore the design that ignores people. Right? So if user want to have a simple flow and your application is too complicated, it is very creative, it is very attractive to see, but it does not serve my need, or it requires me to use extra brain or to brainstorm in order to perform a specific or very simple function. So people won't enjoy using it, right? So they tend to ignore that design, which is not built considering the users. So this gives rise to an inclusive design mindset. Now, how do you have to make sure that your design is inclusive? So an inclusive design is the one which cuts between usability, accessibility, ethics, and equitability. Right, so there are three basic components. Your inclusive design should be considered as the key component of any application. The start of any project starts with building the design or creating the design, and it has to be done by considering that this design is the key component. Then consider the diverse user groups, right? The audience is spread across different parts, right? Even if your product is directed to or targeted to students, there can be students which come from different cultural background, which come from different age group, which come from different abilities. Or in general, the users can be the school-going students or the employees, the young youth of the country, which are the employees, the senior citizens. So consider the diverse user groups which are going to use your application and design for all. Make sure that you are designing for all, considering that it meets everyone's needs. Right now, we have used the terms accessibility and usability throughout this presentation. Let's see what is the difference between these two and what are we targeting to. So when you talk about accessibility, there are certain things which stand out. So first is the W3C standards, which are the WCAG guidelines. Then perceivability and operability, which are two principles of the accessibility out of four. So accessibility runs with the four principles, which is POUR, perceivability, operability, understandability, and robustness. And then another important pillar is assistive technologies. So the users with physical needs, they can use assistive technologies to overcome their limitations. On other hand, usability is completely focused on giving the exceptional user experience or a good user experience. So the important factors of it is ease of use, where user can navigate your applications without any frustration or difficulty, intuitiveness and efficiency, and the user-centric design, which gives you the look and feel of the design, which is appealing to the user. Now, what we have to target towards is we need to consider the intersection of these two things, right? So on one hand, there's accessibility, and on other hand, there's usability, and we have to be focused onto the harmonious mixture of these two, where we will meet the compliance and we will try to give our users an exceptional user experience by just following the checklist and a little shift in the mindset. So why to do this? So yeah, let's see the business benefits of it. So it tends to give you the profits from exceptional user experience. So people often use the product which they are comfortable with, right? And if you give them a good user experience, they tend to come back. The retention rate is more, and you can easily generate profits out of it. Positive brand image. Of course, it also helps in improving your brand image. Like I remember one of the case studies of Apple, where Apple just rolled out the feature of voiceover, which is a screen reader for Apple products. So they not only considered the ethical responsibility and making their users feel inclusive by launching that feature, it also increased their profit and improved their brand image. They increased customer loyalty. So customers tend to stick to the business which think about them. And of course, the wider market reach. As you are targeting the audience of different age groups, a diverse group of audience, your market reach, of course, increases, right? So always remember the accessibility is not a meeting checklist. It is not a box to check, but it is a journey to embark on. So as we leave here today, I encourage each one of you to advocate accessibility in your organization, irrespective of your roles, whether you are a tester, a product manager, a product owner, or any type of stakeholders. Thank you so much for joining, and if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them in chat and I will answer as many as I can. Thank you.